Hey, welcome to my weekly live stream where I talk about all things yoga and yoga related and lots of things that are going on in the yoga world. So, welcome. It's nice to have you here. Today, I want to talk about feeling the flow and what that means. So, there's a there's a couple of things about this idea of flow. First of all, it was developed by this guy, this scientist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, which I probably am pronouncing that wrong, so forgive me. I've never heard anybody say his name, but he was a psychologist who talks about flow state and what that means. And typically, it has to do with like kind of being in the present moment, and feeling the energy moving through you so that you don't even notice it. You're just like completely focused on the task. So he talks about it a lot with like artists and musicians and certainly dancers feel, and we all have the capacity to feel the flow, So flow is a state, and it's may be correlated with what's called transient hypofrontality. That means the front part of your brain where you do a lot of this stuff right here behind your forehead, where you do a lot of focus and concentration. Focus, concentration. This is certainly part of meditation. That would be the dharana limb. The sixth limb of yoga is dharana: focus, concentration. And then you kind of get to this point where you flow, you kind of fly off, if you like, into the great beyond, and you start to experience this state of flow, right? So, and that would be dhyana in meditation. So yes, everybody wants to feel the flow. And how the flow got translated into the yoga world is via the music, song, and dance, via choreography and dance. And let's be very clear here that, first of all, yoga got translated into the American culture um, by many people who had been part of the dance movement that was very popular in the early part of the 20th century. So there was this like, movement flow kind of thing happening. And then yoga came and it just got absorbed into that. And you could say that happened like maybe in the 40s and 50s. And then later in the 90s, when yoga really started to pop and take off, it was getting translated by many performers. So there are people like David Life and Sharon Gannon who are performers. Many of the California yoga teachers were actors, the sort of famous ones, right? And so they were taking yoga and they were like translating it into this kind of performance, if you like. It's very performative. Like if you've ever, I remember I used to do Jivamukti yoga in the 90s. It was so fun. And because I'm sorry, I need a sip of tea. I was living in New Jersey at that time. So I was close to New York. So I'd go into New York City and take classes and stuff. And it was very dancey. It was very flowy. It was fun. It was all about like the music. You get the right music going. You kind of find the flow. Okay. Well, that's great. What does it look like now? Nowadays, it kind of looks like Travis Scott music. The only reason I know who Travis Scott is because I have an 18-year-old son, by the way. But if you listen to his music, it's very interesting. He has this interesting way of building the crescendo, and then he kind of boom drops the beat, and everybody goes crazy because it does something in your heart. Like, I don't know, there's some science behind how that stuff works, but it's fascinating. And so that gets translated into yoga today. Now, here's the issue with all of that. Like, I would never tell anybody don't have fun and don't dance and go enjoy yourself. Enjoy your life. Like, no problem with that. But the thing that happens is it gets translated into, and it kind of filters into the yoga world. And what it does is it doesn't give people a respite or a way to integrate and to neutralize some of the negative effects of dancing. Like many of my clients, actually since the beginning, when I started teaching in 1995, I've had many clients who are injured dancers. Because people in dance, you sacrifice your body often for the art form. Like that's the idea. It's like, I want to do this beautiful thing with my body in order to create art. And so dancers sacrifice their body. So do Cirque du Soleil artists. They sacrifice their body for their art. And what yoga offers is a opportunity to find balance and to get back to neutral. So if you're just going to keep using your yoga in the way that pop culture uses music and dance, like you're probably going to quit doing yoga and start doing physical therapy and Feldenkrais in, in 10 years or now. You're probably going to be doing something else to kind of heal yourself from the injuries that you used from your yoga. So why not just like let the dance be what it is and enjoy your dance, but then come to yoga to kind of find a place of balance. And so the question of how do I find the flow there becomes very beautiful and interesting and nuanced. Because when you do grown up yoga, my friend calls it yoga for grown-ups. Well, my friend who passed, Maria Kirsten, who I love, she used to call it yoga for grown-ups. And one of my teachers, Gary Crafso, calls it yoga for adults. It's like when you use your yoga to find the flow and that internal space, it's much more nuanced. And you don't have to rely on the playlist, and you don't have to rely on the flow and the choreography of your son's. Let all that be what it is. That's fine. But come to your yoga practice, or at least adopt another aspect of your yoga practice, which is about internal flow. And really, that is guided by the music of your breath. When you can guide your practice by the music of your breath, it's an extraordinary feeling. It's an extraordinary way to tap into the flow, what Csikszentmihalyi was talking about, and not having to rely on those external factors of like the right choreography and the right music and whatever. Like that's fine. I'm saying I'm not throwing that stuff under the bus. I'm just saying that it tends to lead towards repetitive strain injuries. And when we have a yoga practice that is all about balance, and that you have this intelligent sequencing that helps to keep the spine healthy and pain-free and mobile, that's a really different way of looking at yoga. You could call it yoga therapy if you want, but you could also just call it yoga. You could just also call it a sustainable yoga practice that's going to, last you can do it for the rest of your life. Whereas you may not be able to do the Travis Scott playlist, hot, sweaty, hypermobile yoga for the rest of your life. I can't tell you how many yoga teachers and dancers I've worked with. I talked about dancers, but I've also worked with yoga teachers over the years who taught in a certain way for years and years and ended up with lots of injuries. So, that's something to be mindful of, particularly for the young the young yoga folks who are really enthusiastic and love yoga. I would hate to see them not be able to continue to practice or stop practicing because and cut themselves off from those deeper nervous system, mental, emotional health benefits of yoga because they are like, oh, yoga hurts, I can't do it anymore. I would hate to see that. And I think that when people start to integrate more balancing practices into their practice, like from the get-go, even in teenagers and 20-year-olds, then yoga can be much more fun and more sustainable. Thank you so much for joining me. It's lovely to have you here. Please leave a comment. And hey, let me know what else you want me to talk about. I love sharing stuff about yoga and the yoga world, and I'd love to hear your suggestions. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week.